everyone. This is Dungeon for Roll for Good. Sitting down to have a nice chat with a wonderful game designer today. Her lovely games are available on Itch and feature such titles as Delve and Oh, here's one.
Apothecaria.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to welcome Anna Blackwell of Blackwell Games. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Nice. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us what got you into making games?
Yeah, my name's Anna Blackwell. I wanted to go into computer games design. I went through college and university for about 5 years doing computer game design, and then realized that I absolutely hate computers. So after that, I started working making a role-playing game called Those Who Play, and then went on to do more kind of games journalist stuff, writing for like Tabletop Games Magazine, uh, writing for Retro Gamer, Wireframe, stuff like that, until eventually I saw ZenQuest 2 pop up. And I was like, oh, I want to make something. And came up with the idea for Delve just in a night based on a little doodling game I was playing of my own kind of, I want to do this and this. And it all kind of snowballed from there.
Cool. Yeah, like Delve seems like it's really cool. I really like the concept. Just in case there's anyone out there who's less familiar, though, could you maybe explain what solo journaling games are?
Yep. So a solo journaling game is a solo role-playing game. You play a character, and instead of having a dungeon master tell you what you're doing, you instead use tables in the game to kind of create random events that you then write creatively about in your journal.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. All right. There's so many out there and so many wonderful different ways that people have done it. It's absolutely amazing seeing all that creativity. And speaking of, there's like some really fun, unique games in your library. Like we mentioned Delve. I really like Delve
Thank you.
because it's got that drawing element, and I find that really interesting. So like, what inspired you to kind of make a game out of art? Because as you said, a lot of the journaling games kind of focus on writing.
Hmm. Well, for Delve, it was very much inspired by Dwarf Fortress, which is a video game that is incredibly dense. Like you need a university degree just to play Dwarf Fortress. So while I could never get into the game, I loved seeing YouTubers and writers and artists making comics and videos and stories about that game. So seeing the kind of holds that they would draw, these like dwarf fortresses, usually taking on like slices as they were going down, I was like, that could be really fun to do on your own. So I wanted to make something that would let you create a kind of visual map that could be a story in itself, and then could also be brought into like traditional RPG sessions. So
Mm.
you know, you said you do your prep, you play through your hold, and then when it inevitably falls to some horrible thing, as Delve was intended to be, uh, you have a pre-made location for your next RPG session.
That's so cool, like really, really cool. And I noticed as well that you have other games kind of based on the Delve system, like it's
Mhm.
Rise, correct? So what after you did Delve, did that happen naturally, or how did that happen?
So that was all because the Kickstarter exploded. Uh, when I first came to Kickstarter 2 in 2020, I was like, hey, if I can get, you know, £1,000, £700 or so, I'll be able to make this little Zine game about playing as dwarves. And ended up walking away with about 8 grand. So
Wow.
I got really excited during it. I was like, oh, we need to more stretch goals, and end up overworking myself making Delve, Rise, and Umbra Stations, the expansion for Umbra.
Mm.
They're all the same core mechanics, but Rise flips Delve on its head, puts you in charge of a like evil dungeon, very much inspired by Dungeon Keeper,
Hmm.
the old Bullfrog game, in which you have to build up your dungeon and reach the surface and escape. It adds in things like dungeon morale. Your units will mutiny if you don't entertain them enough. And
Hmm.
then Umbra was the sci-fi variant, which adds in things like food, hunger, food, power, surface building, uh, and just a lot more complexity to it.
Cool. Yeah, that I haven't played any of the others. I've only looked at Delve at the moment, but I'm very excited to look at the others. The concept of Rise just being that you are the evil that um takes all of your characters in Delve is just very, very cool, and I find that very appealing. Um Thank you. That's super awesome. Um what other creators inspire you? Like what other people in the um, solo journaling sphere inspire you and why?
Well, when I first got started, the very first one I ever played was Artifact uh, by Jack Harrison, who I'm actually in a little games collective with now. We all work together writing for Tabletop Gaming Magazine, making little RPG things each month. But Artifact was the first solo RPG I played, and it really opened my eyes to like how emotional the story could be. Because I played it when I'd moved to Manchester down from Glasgow. I didn't know anyone. My partner was away to South Africa at that point for about 6 weeks. And then there was this little game about loneliness and abandonment. And I was like, oh yeah, this will be fun. This will be interesting. Spends the next 6 hours weeping over an axe that's been abandoned. Because in Artifact, you play as a magical item over the centuries and eons as it passes from wielder to wielder.
Hmm.
And Jack Harrison's work, like taking that and then like going into like Bucket of Bolts, where it's like, you know, playing like Millennium Falcon, like spaceships in the kind of same sort of vein. I love that. I love how raw and emotional his games can be. Then Sean Tompkin, the creator of Ironsworn, I love Ironsworn because it shows just like how big you can get with a solo RPG. I think that is the biggest solo RPG book that I know of, especially when you add in Ironsworn Delve, which lets you go into dungeons and such, because that is a full traditional tabletop RPG designed for solo play. And the
That
best
sounds
part
so
about it was,
cool.
yeah, and it was put out for free. Like,
Wow.
yeah, it was so much work and effort he put into it, but it was put out for free, and you can tell that really paid off because he's just done the sci-fi variant Starforged, and that exploded on Kickstarter because he built up his audience. He showed people, it's like, here's the stuff I want to make, and I want to share it with as many people as possible. So that kind of generosity really inspires me.
Hmm.
And then most recently, like starting this kind of, because it exploded over the last couple of years, the solo RPG scene. There's too many to keep up with. Uh, but like Chris Bissett, who's also in Rainy Day Games, his game The Wretched. I never like. I'm not big into horror. I'm a bit of a coward. But The Wretched, playing differently, so you don't journal into a book in The Wretched. You journal into an audio log, so recording on your phone or using a dictaphone like I did, as you're playing with a Jenga tower, and you're recording the audio log as you're trying to survive the end scene of Alien, but not actually for copyright reasons. And it's so tense, like as the tower starts getting more and more wobbly, you're recording your voice and you're trying not to breathe too much in case you knock the table. And you're like, day 7, it's been hard. So yeah, those are creators that inspire me.
It's great that you mentioned the Wretched because last Halloween we had a solo play of the
Mm.
Wretched during our charity stream, and you're right, it was so tense. It was so good just listening. I mean, I can't even imagine playing because yeah, way way more intense, but just even listening to the audio logs, it was like a really good experience.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's and yeah, just because I know it's obviously got a lot of inspired stuff from Alien, but I also think of like lots of video games where you read where you read the logs of the people who didn't
mhm,
survive, and I kind of think of it like you're one of those people who didn't quite
yeah,
make it. Like you're not the main character, you're the log that the main character will be finding in order to figure out like the horrors that will be
yeah,
there.
definitely.
And yeah, I find that super cool. A lot of the I find myself drawn to a lot of solo play games that have something different about them. Like I really like just the ones where you're recording stuff down. I find them amazingly useful for writing and practice, and honestly sometimes learning how to research stuff because it inspires you to do that. But also just the ones that are slightly different, like, you know, using artwork or a voice log,
Mm.
or you know, inspiring you to just make like a social media posts instead. Like, you know, you kind of tell the story via short posts. I find it really interesting. Like, it's a whole different way to explore storytelling,
Yeah,
and that's just super super fun. Yeah, great. So yeah, you have a few games under your belt now, and you have a you've successfully completed the Kickstarter, as you mentioned.
mm.
What advice do you have for other people who want to maybe create their own games but aren't really sure about how to go about it?
Definitely start small. ZineQuest is great because you're really restricted in what space you have. Like a Zine, I think, can only really get up to about 80 pages before it stops being like traditionally a Zine.
Hmm. And when you say like the quests, is this stuff that is done like on itch, or is it like the
Oh,
jams, or
yep. Sorry, it's easy to forget not everyone exists in my bubble. Yeah, ZineQuest was a thing run by Kickstarter. It used to happen every February. This year, they very late in the game said they were switching it to August, which meant that a bunch of other RPG creators stepped in to make Zine Month. So, and like that runs on like itch.io, GameFound, and things like that. Uh, you don't need to use crowdfunding programs. It's a fun way to, like, you know, if you've got an idea, see if there's an audience. But I mean, you can really just make a game for yourself and then put it up on itch or put it up on whatever website you want to put it up on. But yeah, definitely start small. Don't worry about making it a masterpiece. Like, it can be simple, it can be easy. And one of my like games that I made before Delve that I still really enjoy is Matey's The Pop-Up Pirate RPG. And like The Wretched, you play it with a game. Like, you grab a pop-up pirate, you're playing pirates trying to mutiny against the captain, and every time, like, you know, we all know the captain be a blackguard, and everyone knows he sleeps with his bedpan under his bed, so we'll stick some dynamite in it. And then you stick the knife into the pop-up pirate, and if the pirate doesn't pop up, you've succeeded at that part of your like plan to mutiny. And if you get to the end without popping the pirate up, you win. If it pops up, you count how many swords you've got, and that determines whether you escape, if all of you escape, if some of you escape, or if the captain just catches you early and you get keel hauled.
That's so cool. Like the idea of using pop-up pirate as a storytelling mechanic is really funny, and I, you know, I love pirates, so that sounds really really fun.
Uh, I need to get that on stream at one point.
That would be so fun. I imagine that would be really fun to stream.
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, start small. Use public domain art. It's out there. There are some games that I've seen that just are astonishing with it. Like, and I say astonishing because Stories to Astonish the World by Yunnan. Yeah. She uses traditional Chinese paintings as a point crawl. So it's like a map of a location that is an old Chinese painting, and she's made routes across it, and then little descriptors that have stories about, like, you know, ghost towns and bandit attacks. So that would be, you know, very easy to make a beautiful looking game without breaking the bank in terms of budget.
That's a very good idea. I've seen lots of games do that actually. There's some video games that do that. I remember visual novel wise, there's a game called Avian Attorney where it uses a lot of old timey classic artwork of animals dressed as people, but they have like human arms and hands,
Yeah,
which are it's a very cool style. It creates a style, I think, all of its own, because it's public domain, but it's like you're using all this old-timey art, and it just creates its own really cool vibe, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And I imagine you could do similar, like, even if you needed like music or something. Like, I feel like solo journaling games, it very rarely comes up, but maybe it's even something you could do with that. Cool.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much. I think we just have one last question, or more of a creative exercise, if you were willing to. We have a little table, where we can roll 2d10, and we can maybe together come up with a new thing depending on what is rolled. Do you have 2d10 handy, or shall I roll the d10? Go for it. Please roll me 2d10, and we will come over.
First one, 7.
Mm-hmm.
And a 1.
A 7 and a 1. That is an impractical item. That sounds pretty fun. Okay, let's just come over to the Jamboard. Okay. So I think what's going to happen is, if we'll do this together. So if you come up with some very cool descriptions, I can try to maybe draw it, but we'll see how this goes. This may go horribly wrong. But what's your first inkling when you hear the term impractical item?
Well, I know in Scotland, I'm assuming also around the world, you get like the kind of common examples of an impractical item, like a chocolate teapot or an inflatable dartboard.
Yeah.
Maybe something. Oh, an inflatable shield.
Oh my gosh, an inflatable shield. That sounds fun. I'm not even sure how I would go about doing that, but I think just making it look like super round, maybe?
Yeah.
Like, I've imagined. Oh, it's not that easy to draw in here, but there we go.
Round, get the wee kind of.
Yeah, like, and then maybe it's got like.
That looks more like hairs.
The like the blow up bit, and it's got all these lines.
Yep.
Like a little, like someone spent a while huffing and puffing, like blowing this shield up, and it immediately just like gets hit with an arrow or something.
Yeah, so it's the kind of thing, like the merchant who sold it to you really painted it well. They're like, oh yeah, it weighs next to nothing. You've got a long journey ahead of you. You're not going to need it all the time. So just inflate it when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like a little buckler, it's like, okay, ready to go.
Yeah.
But if you've got like a great shield, you're sat at the back. Like when you're camping, you've got your blow up mattress. The battle begins.
Yeah, like maybe it's also like, maybe like you get the like the bouncy castles. They're all like in sausages, is the way I would describe them. Like that. You've got a nice shield there, but it's full of air. And
a bouncy castle full of bouncy knights.
Yeah. My gosh, this sounds fun. And then yeah, one of these blow up stoppers again. Something like that.
We blow up sword as well.
Yeah. Just a whole. There we go. I'm not great at spelling, but we'll hope that that's correct. Yeah, just like inflatable equipment. Interesting. These are. I mean, it certainly is impractical. However, like always, I'm imagining a wizard coming in and making this somewhat viable somehow. Like,
Yeah, like some sort of like stone skin shield, like spell on it.
Yeah,
like even the most impractical things useful in a sense.
Yeah, like you could be just carrying it around, like you said, because it's light. And then when you get into battle, you just like cast
Just
a
quick
spell,
enchantment. Yeah.
done. It's suddenly threatening. But that's
Until
very
someone
cool.
counterspells it.
Yeah, until counterspell comes in. I always forget that counterspell exists.
Swinging it is like all enchanted. So you've been cutting through orcs, and you bring it in. You come down, the counterspell, and it just goes bonk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe just maybe one more where like there's an arrow it's pierced it. We didn't get the enchantment up in time, and it's I don't know. It's gone all floppy.
Oh, it's like flailing around in the wind coming out of it.
Yeah, maybe there's one just coming around here. Woo! I don't know what it looks like. Like, there we go. We got this shield, and it's just going on a wind. What's like a wind noise? Like a kind of fart noise going on there.
Yeah.
There we go. It's all the rage. That's a heck of a charismatic salesman there. I like it though. I like this range of inflatable battle ornaments. Like shields, swords, maybe even like a inflatable helm or something, you know, and being like, it's it's buoyant, you won't drown. Keep your head above water. It's got all of these very practical uses.
Very practical, definitely.
Yeah. Oh man, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. Inflatable equipment.
I like that.
Yeah, definitely want to hang on in there. Awesome. Thank you very much for creating that with me.
Thank you. That was really cool.
Yeah. Before we go, would you like to let everybody know where they can find you, where they can find your games, all of that jazz?
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Blackwell Writer. You can find my games at blackwellwriter.itch.io or blackwellwriter.com. We're about you. Sorry. If you're in the UK, I'll be at the UK Games Expo in Birmingham next month, where Stout Stoat and I's newest game, Apothecaria, which is about playing little animals trying to heal each other in the bristly woods, will be making its debut.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been really fun chatting about your games and just journal games in general. I really love journal games. They're just really nice to do when, like, maybe you want to practice writing, or you have 10 minutes, or you know, maybe your group has had to cancel that week, and it's just a nice fun way of exploring stuff by yourself.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's been really nice being able to chat about all of that.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me.
No worries. And next up we should have another wonderful tabletop game to raise money for World Central Kitchen. So stay tuned, and we will see you soon. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.